All right, here we go with video number 2 on how to light the fire. If you haven't seen video number 1, you might want to check that out. It'll give you a lot of background on what's going on here. Okay, first of all, how do we light the fire? What are some solutions to the problem of not being motivated? And your kid has to do their work, or they have to at least do some of their work to get the results that they need. All right, so first of all, remember, the priority here. The priority here is to help your kid have a great future, not to get straight A's, not to get into certain colleges, not to get great grades on standardized tests or blah, blah, blah. Your priority is to help your kid get whatever it is that they need in order to have a happy and successful life. They need to have some grit in order to have a happy and successful life. They need to have a happy childhood. They need to feel safe. They need to have skills in school. They need to know how to use a planner and manage time. So they need to know a lot of things, but a lot of times we get way too focused on compliance, on grades, on doing what you're told, on being a good boy, good girl, do your work, blah, blah, blah. So remember, the priority is what do we need to give them to help them have a happy life now and in the future, okay? What do they really need? So always keep that priority in mind. Now, when you're trying to help a student, okay, this is a lot of what I deal with. I get middle schooler and high schooler kids. Sometimes I work with college students and younger kids, but basically I get kids who really have trouble getting motivated. They like to procrastinate, they avoid, they resist. They don't want to start. They may find the work meaningless, boring, or there may be any number of reasons that they don't want to start. So how am I going to take a student who really is having trouble starting and help them get moving on whatever it is? And a lot of times parents, what you're doing is making it too overwhelming for them. You're actually making it worse by getting worked up and getting stressed out, and they're getting even more stressed out and more resistant to doing their work. Now, I know it's a very hard balance, and it's very hard to figure out what to say to them to motivate them. So that's why I'm telling you this. Part of what I do is I consider success in millimeters, okay? Look, you have to put things in the right perspective. Your child, your ability as a parent or a teacher, if you're watching this, if you're going to help transform a child's life and help transform their ability to, with task commitment, to get things done that they need to do, if you're going to help them transform their ability to manage the extraordinary amount of tasks that are required to be successful in school. Okay? If you're going to help them make that transformation, you better look at millimeters and you better praise success in millimeters. Every millimeter, every fraction of a millimeter of growth and progress and effort that they make, you better be rewarding. You better notice it. You better help them notice it. The secret is that this is where it happens. It's extremely infrequent for my students to have a massive epiphany and a giant change. That's not reality, okay? It's extremely rare. I don't even know how I'd quantify it. 1 in 100 times, I don't know. What you need to do is help them move in millimeters. That's where the growth happens, and that's where the change happens. And you put enough of the millimeters together, and eventually you have massive change. And once a lot of change starts happening, then things start to change much more easily. But at the beginning, parents, you got to understand this. It's very small things that they're doing, and that is where the solutions are going to come. So how do you help them move in millimeters? Okay, here's some ways. Let's say that your child has a paper to write or math to do. You can sit down with them and you can say, all right, I know you don't want to do this. You have 28 problems to do. I know it feels very overwhelming. Do you want to start with 3, 5, or 10 problems? And then they might say, oh, well, I'll start with 3. Cool. That's better than 0. See what I'm saying? You have to get them started. Oftentimes, once they start, then you can watch and their motivation will take them. The train is moving, okay? So if they've done 3, it's so much easier to do 4 and 5, and they might, before you know it, have the whole thing done, half of it done. And once they're done with 3, you can say, great, why don't we keep going? Can you do 1 more? Can you do 3 more? Can you finish? Can you do the easy ones first? You don't have to go in order. Who said you have to go in order? Why don't you do the easy ones? So you have to, as a parent, think outside the box. how can I help them move in millimeters? Now, there's another way that I'll get to in a minute. Well, I'll talk about it right now. So basically what you're doing is you're chunking this by task. You're saying, okay, we'll do 3 or 5 or 7 questions or whatever. But you can also say, hey, look, I need you to work on your homework. Can you do it for 1 minute, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes? Maybe they say 1 minute. As you need to figure out how you articulate it, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. You can use all different strategies with this, but however you phrase it to them, the thing you need to understand is they need to feel emotionally safe in that. If you say, do you want to do your homework for an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, they're going to be like, none. That's too much. It's too overwhelming. You have to make it feel emotionally safe, okay? So millimeters, get tiny progress going. If their backpack is a complete mess and you want to help them clean it, then you say, hey, let's clean one pocket of your backpack. Which one do you want to do? Or again, you can use the false choice concept. Okay, let's clean part of your backpack. Do you want to do 1, 2, or 3 pockets? Okay, which one do you want to do? And anything that they do that's going to move them forward, you have to see that as a success and make them feel that, because that's what's going to get them more motivated. You cannot be glass half empty here. Scaffolding. Scaffolding is you take them from where they're at and you move them from here to here. So often I see teachers and parents, they see a child who's here and they want them to be here. That's too big of a jump. You have to support them to get to those next levels. And this is a very similar concept to the millimeters, but let's say that, that you're trying to figure out their threshold for writing a paper. And you say, all right, I need you to get started on your writing. Do you want to write 1 paragraph or 2? And they say none. And you say, okay, can you write 3 sentences? No. Can you write 1 sentence? No. Can you write 1 word? No. Can you write a dot? Yes. Okay, let's start there. And you start at writing the dot and you scaffold up. That's one way to explain it. That's not a very good way to explain it. But what I'm trying to say is you find a threshold that find where they're at and then help them up. Okay? Now, a side note, or a related side note, if their homework is taking them 2 hours and they're working very hard and it takes them a long time to process what they're doing and they're highly distractible or something, you need to tell the teacher that it's unreasonable, because it is. It is unreasonable for homework to interfere with their life. They have to have a life. So figure out what's actually reasonable, and if the homework is meaningful, and if it's actually serving them, if it's actually helping their life, great, then push them a little bit. But when a kid is spending so much time on homework, scaffold, help them move forward or change the homework, etc. Advocacy. When that stuff is happening and stuff is too much and it doesn't make sense for your child to do that, fiercely advocate for your child. Go in there and be like, this isn't cool. I don't care what you're saying. And if they're not listening and the teacher doesn't get it and they think you're attacking them or whatever, it's not about the teacher, it's about your child. Your child is there to be served. Your teacher is not there to be served by the children, to have a compliant group of little robots. Your children are there to be served by the teacher, by the educator, okay? So if they're not doing what they need to, advocate, and then if they're still not doing, go to their superiors and go to their superiors. I don't care what you have to do, but advocate. Tell, you're all partners. You're all trying to help the kid. It's just that some people are out there for some reason, and I don't know what's going on in their minds. I mean, their perception of what it means to serve a child is just off. Maybe it's from their upbringing and what they think school is supposed to be about, and that they think they're supposed to make kids comply or whatever. But when you feel something in your gut is wrong, okay, advocate for them. So sometimes what I'm saying is it's not even appropriate to try to motivate your kid to do something that's not right for them. It doesn't help them. I cannot tell you how important timers are. This is one of the best investments you can make. They're ridiculously expensive for a stupid little piece of plastic with a tiny little battery in it, but have some digital timers around. Now, when I use timers a lot to chunk work down for kids, so I can say, all right, do you want to work on it for 1 minute, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes? And they tell me, we set it, I teach them to set it. It's nice because it's audible, so it makes the work more concrete for your child. And it's also tactile. They actually touch it and press start. That helps to get the brain focused in on what they're doing. and it chunks it down to something very small. Most of my kids don't understand what time is. If you say we're leaving in 5 minutes, they don't know what 5 minutes is. They don't have a good gauge a lot of times. So if I say, how long will your homework take? And they say 20 minutes, I'm like, cool, let's set it for 15 and see where you're at. A lot of times it takes 45 minutes or whatever, but they're often off. These are great tools to use for the kids to use to motivate themselves to start moving a millimeter forward. A lot of it is a game about getting started and feeling successful with that. Chunk it down. We talked about that, chunking it with time and chunking it into tasks. And also, what is good enough? Like, if there's 40 problems, do they really need to do 40 problems? If they have to write 5 pages, do they really why 5 pages, okay? Because the teacher says so? Does that mean that they're going to have a better future because they complied and made 5? Have them do their best. Scaffold. If they're capable of doing 2 pages and they do 2 pages plus a half page, that's a huge success for that kid. You really have to look at what's good enough. And you just have to draw the line sometimes and tell the teacher, this is where we're at. And hopefully your teacher is supportive of that and understands that and knows how to make them have an experience of success, not an experience of failure. Who's motivated by an experience of failure? Model. Parents. You can model a lot of things and do think alouds, even for high school kids. And what that means is that, let's say that you're organizing your day, you can kind of be talking to yourself in front of your kid and say, oh, I'm going to prioritize this event over this one. I'm not going to do that. You're modeling what you want them to be thinking, okay? You're showing them how you process and how you work through life and how you manage time and how you manage tasks in your life. And you're kind of doing a think aloud and thinking out loud so that they can hear your process. You don't even tell them what you're doing, you just do it. And they learn a lot by watching what we do. They also learn by when we model negativity, when we model our nervous systems going crazy and our emotions not in check. And when we as adults become dysregulated, we're modeling that for them and we're teaching them, hey, look, get dysregulated when something happens that you don't like. That'll fix it. So we need to really think about what we're modeling for our kids. And patience. Look, child's brain is developing. Most likely, your child's going to be okay. Yes, that does not mean don't take measures to help your child at all. You should, but be patient. Their brain is changing. This takes time, okay? Usually when I'm working with a student, it takes anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to start seeing changes in my students where I'm like, okay, their brain is finally changing. Now I'm really seeing a big change. It takes time for the neurons to rewire and for things to change. Be patient, okay? And it may take months and years. So just don't give up on them. Don't stop having the conversations. Don't worry about if you're having the conversation right or not with your kid. Keep having them. That's what's really important. So this is several things about how to light a fire. I know this was kind of a random video, but I hope that I'm giving you, rather than step by step, I hope I'm giving you some vibes and some ideas for how to help motivate them. But I think the main thing I want you to leave with is this. Your child needs to feel emotionally safe if you are going to get them to take a micro step towards doing what they need to do towards success. So they need to feel not overwhelmed. They need to feel like it's something they can accomplish. And they need to feel like it's a success experience. You might know in your mind that, oh my gosh, this is not where it needs to be. He or she needs to do X, Y, and Z also. The bar is so low right now. But you have to start where you're at. And you have to move forward in a way that feels safe for them, or you're just really going to keep going around in circles. And you may have micro breakthroughs every once in a while, but you want to have multiple small breakthroughs right after each other, just millimeter after millimeter after millimeter. You got to trust me on this. You're not going to have some lecture with them and they're just going to see the light and change overnight. That's extraordinarily unlikely. Your strategy is to give them micro success experiences, make them feel safe, and really praise them, make them feel happy. All right, that was a huge, long 2 video series. I hope that was helpful to you. I'll see you soon.